Yeah. Okay. Thank you for joining, Alberto. So today we are about to start our program, strategy management, uh, a few industry case studies and personal experiences. Yeah. Let us see for a couple of minutes how to just engage the discussion. Deep, if you are able to hear me, just advise and start. Okay. So it's uh, 3 p.m. now in India. So let us start. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the session today. We are talking about very important topic, strategy management. So here we talk about some real-time use cases, case studies, and also the personal experiences in executing strategies successfully. So I would like to welcome our guest, uh, Alberto Manzo. So thank you, Alberto, for joining us. So let us do a quick round of introductions to start with until everybody catch up for this. So let me give a quick introduction about Alberto, and then we talk about little about me, and then we talk about the program. Maybe I'll just start with the program. So today we are talking about the global strategy talk show. Here we keep on doing these programs regularly, every alternate week or every month or something, to bring industry best practitioners to the organizations. The main objective is the organizations needs help. Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't know, or sometimes they can afford, sometimes they cannot afford, or sometimes they would like to listen to different opinions to make their strategy journey successful. So in that sense, we bring global experts to the audience as part of this. So Alberto joined us from Qatar. So it's very nice to have Alberto Monzo with us. So thank you, Alberto. Let me give you a brief about Alberto. So Alberto Manzo is a seasoned professional based in Doha, Qatar, specialized in strategy management, corporate transformations, and operational excellence. Okay, so he is a founder and CEO of Impact Consulting. So Alberto he is very experienced. He spent a lot of time in helping different organizations. So he spent more than 6 years with Qatar Post, where he was heading the major transformational program, and of course achieved a double-digit growth. He spent more than 6 years in Qatar Airways, he talked about the strategy for Hamad International Airport, and then he also spent a lot of time in the aviation industry, where Alitalia and Delta Airlines, Royal Mail. So just name it. So when you talk about the whole program, his experience, you have the aviation industry, postal and logistics, whatnot. So I'm very fortunate to invite Alberto to this program. So thank you, Alberto, for joining us. We will be very happy to hear your experiences and then also very nice insights, which can be very useful for the organizations to achieve their strategy excellence. Please post your questions in the comment box. Whether you are in LinkedIn or you are in YouTube or Facebook, please post your questions. We will take it up wherever appropriately, and then make it as more interactive. So it will be more based on a practical experiences instead of theoretical. So I would like to just a quick. I would like to ask Alberto to step in and take the lead. So thank you, Alberto. Yeah, over to you.
Well, Abdul, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for the platforms that are sponsoring this program. It's very nice of you to sort of found me out someplace in the middle of LinkedIn, millions of people on it, and asking me to participate. It's very kind of you. And I also would like to thank everybody that has registered and hopefully be online to have a chat with us about this topic. Now, you've introduced me quite extensively. I thank you for that. I'm humbled to be here with you and with the rest of the team to discuss this topic. There is no fast and silver bullet, in my opinion, about strategy and how we deal with it. So I'd like to just add a couple of pennies worth of my experience and case studies, as you said, specifically in the space of aviation and logistics. But we don't have an awful lot of time. We've got maybe about an hour and a half or so, or less. And I'd like to make this conversation, Abdul, as interactive as possible. Less of a lecture, more of a discussion. So there will be some pit stops along the way, Abdul, where we will ask the audience themselves some questions, not just them asking us, but also us asking them. So that we also want to learn from this. Nobody is the guru about anything these days, right? So this is the attitude that I want to sort of create in this conversation today. It's 12:38 in Doha, Qatar. It's 46 degrees, quite sunny, but very, very hot, not so humid. So it's a good thing to be at the moment outside up to a certain point, and then you start frying. Well, I don't know where you guys are in the world, but this one of the things you can do is just drop a line and say where you are connecting from. That would be quite interesting. Right. So without further ado, we can kick it off.
Yep. Yeah. So thank you, Alberto. Very nice. So what we'll do is, I think the best way to do is, I know you have a lot of things to share. So you just give us some kind of the methodology and then the frameworks, the benefits, so that, we set the tone. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then followed by maybe you talk about the industry examples. And then meanwhile, I'll just ask the audience to pose some questions. And then maybe we can have a poll. Okay. So please feel free, participants, try to be interactive, ask your questions. And then Alberto is all here to answer all of your questions, and let us make it more interactive. Yeah, Alberto. Yeah,
okay,
please.
Great. So if I can get the slides on the screen, please. Fantastic. All right, I'll take control from this point. I appreciate it. So as we've already said, the purpose of today is basically split within the context of looking at some theories and some methodologies, some tools and techniques, but also to look at some of the case studies, particularly from an aviation perspective and from a logistics perspective. So that's basically what I'd like to do. And the approach is a bit of a blend between theory and practice, a pragmatic tone of voice. I don't want to be, lecturing anyone here. There's a lot of expertise in the room. I just want to share my experiences. I want to make it interactive and obviously engage via some Q&A along the way. So I will not spend a lot of time at all on brief introduction, but this is the agenda. Some business environment. We'll talk about strategy management definitions. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say confusion, but certainly different aspects and different people saying different things, which is absolutely fine. So we need to put a little bit of clarity if we can. I will touch on some strategy management theories, and again, and also some tools and techniques. And finally, close off with the logistics case study, whereas the aviation one will run across module 3 to 5. So that's what we are going to do. Let me move on to the business environment. I mean, the business environment, what can we say about it? I mean, what is not happening these days, right? So, whoever is in industry, whether it be a CEO or a managing director, a manager, anyone in industry will know that, we're losing sleep sometimes over the ways that we conduct business. There is a number of reasons why we are, thinking and feeling that way. Think about the supply chain disruption. Think about what happened with the Suez Canal. Think about COVID. All of these sort of unpredictable events that nobody could see that were going to hit us. Think about the wars that we are unfortunately undergoing at the minute. We have two, one in Europe and one in the Middle East. Regulations, that comes in and sort of unsettles us, and a lot of ambiguity and a lot of unknowns. Revenue that's scarce at times. We know that 84% of CEOs are concerned about revenue growth. Also, talent acquisition and retention, a major element. We are all as good as our teams, and there is a lot of war on talent. 87% of executives are rating talent acquisition and retention as a critical priority in their organizations, and a lot of market volatility, cybersecurity, and so on and so forth. I mean, it seems as if the survey by Qualtrics has rated the highest percentage of worry for the CEOs, and 93%, and that is customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction comes at the far end of our product chain. Not surprising, whatever has happened beforehand, and people are worried about what customers are feeling and what customer sentiment and their reputational damage. So plenty to worry about, and that is for me the precondition of where strategy starts to gain value. There is no favorable wind for the sailor who doesn't know where to go. So clearly, you can have all sorts of opportunities, all sorts of budgets, but if you don't know your destination, if you know your direction, let's not talk about destination, because the journey is not a destination, but it's a journey in itself. We don't quite know how we're going to operate. However, strategy comes in as a shelter, comes in as a way to support the organizations, to offer the clarity, to give us a fanar, to give us a point of reference and a direction where to go. But how do we do that? Okay, so there are a lot of myths about strategy. Okay, so let's talk about what strategy isn't before we talk about what strategy is. So a lot of people think that, okay, I've got a list of activities, I've got a plan, and particularly people in the planning departments out with strategy, they think that there's a strategy. But actually, strategy is not a list of activities. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that whoever's got a slight hint of a strategy would think that actually that's the future. Okay, that the future is written in that particular document, and we can see it and we can predict it. But there again, unfortunately, as I've said at the beginning, there's a lot of spanners in the works that we're not going to be able to predict. And I would be listing them between now and the end of the presentation, how many issues we've had in the world of politics, of socioeconomic problems and issues, and therefore futures cannot be predicted. Yep. The other thing that strikes me as a myth is that strategy is the domain of the few, and for some reason, the domain of the clever. Well, the people that are analytical, the people that operate within that space are better at strategy, and people that don't are not. Well, actually, do not be constrained by analysts. I've been in industry for a few years, and I'm sure that a lot of people have as well. And there is always a healthy conflict, and we will talk about balanced scorecards later, between different attitudes and different ways of thinking. Cost controllers will pull you in a certain direction, whereas revenue generation people and sales and marketing directors will pull you in a different direction, and everybody's an analyst. But actually, don't be frozen by analysis. Don't be paralyzed by it. Okay. And also, strategy is not the domain of the analysts. Okay. They are often not the better ones to deploy it. They're not often the better ones to be able to understand the sentiment of the people. Now, let's not forget, strategy is a social discipline. Okay. It's not a mathematical discipline. It's a social discipline. So yes, we can be technicians about it, but it's a social discipline. It's got to do with people. It's got to do with teams. It's got to be dealing with corporates. It's got to be dealing with customers. It's got to be dealing with employees. So it's a social discipline, not a mathematical discipline. Now, the other thing is, strategy is a zero-sum game, is it? Well, what does that mean? A zero-sum game is where one wins above another. Okay, we will talk a lot about, being in there to win. We will talk about a lot about competitors, but actually, strategy should lead to a positive sum game. What does that mean again? It means that there is enough fish in the pond for all of us to be able to enjoy, the fruits of that pond. There is enough for us to share, not necessarily for one company or entity to dominate on its own. So that's, for me, an important aspect that I think will relax an awful lot of us in industry when we think about strategy not being a zero sum, but being a positive sum game. And lastly, strategy is formulated at the top and executed at the bottom. Well, no, it isn't. Okay, it just isn't. Why isn't it the case? Okay, because strategy is a democratic discipline. I repeat, I said social earlier. I will use the word democratic. It's not a discipline that sits in the ivory tower. It's a discipline that needs to be socialized. It's a discipline that needs to be democratized. The more we do that, the more we will be able to gain the buy-in and the inputs of the different layers of the organization. And remember, the lower down you go, the more people know about the job that you represent at the top. Okay, so I think it's really these are really important sort of principles that we need to talk about.
Alberto, just have one more point here. Okay, so everybody attach strategy to everything. Okay, so they call it a strategic HR, strategic supply chain, strategic finance, strategic project management, anything. So if you want to make it more attractive, so they add something called strategic for everything. So what do you think? So is this something, a fancy thing, or do you have multiple strategies, or is it one strategy? I think it's better to clarify that point for the audience.
Okay, so that's a really good point. It's a really good point. It makes me smile because you're absolutely right. Whichever department you work with, they'll tell you, I'm culprit. Okay, so I've got a sales and marketing strategy. Okay, and then when you go to the CHRO, he's got stuck on his wall or her wall the DHR, the human resources and talent and so on strategy. And wherever you go, you go to finance and so on. So what's the point that you're making quite rightly here, Abdul? That actually, for me, there's only one strategy. Okay, the company strategy. Okay, we can talk about the ecosystem strategy, the corporate. We can funnel it down, but within the entity that we are working within. Again, so there isn't multiple strategy. There is one strategy, but this is important. What I'm about to say. There's one strategy, but that strategy, as we said earlier, is a social strategy. It needs to be cascaded. It needs to be absorbed, understood, converted, interpreted by the different layers of the organization. Exactly. And they can have, for sure, actually not they can, they must have created an approach, a roadmap, okay? That, as I called it in other discussions, I call it a clear line of sight. A clear line of sight, which connects the dots from the top down to the various layers, both horizontally and vertically, creating a clear line of sight so that different entities within the organization, different departments and sections are fully aligned with those principles, those strategic intents that were originated and set by the teams, the management team. So no, there is only one strategy, and there are multiple roadmaps.
Yeah, This is very important because we need to clarify this. It's only one strategy, and all other things follow that. Okay, so you must be either aligned to the business, to the strategy, or you need to be integrated with strategy, whatever you call it. Okay, so it's only one strategy we have for a business, for a given business. Thank you.
I agree.
Yeah,
No worries.
yeah, please proceed.
Okay, so let's look at, we talked about what strategy isn't, okay, or at least what are some of the myths about strategy. So what is it that we are dealing with? What is this monster? Well, it's not any monsters. I've got a couple of, in fact, 3 quotes here. One from Jack Welch, ex-GE, one from Michael Porter, a great thought leader and tutor in the space of strategy, and one from Alex Brookban. And I'll start with Jack Welch. And strategy means making clear-cut choices about how to compete. Okay, so clear-cut choices about how to compete. So I've chosen these 3 because they will filter down the conversations that we're going to have in a minute. Clear-cut choices about how we're going to compete. So we need to make choices. Make choices about what? We'll talk about that. And also we need to compete. We cannot be everything to everybody. So we need to be selective. Okay. It doesn't matter how much money you've got and what is the size of your business, but you still cannot be everything to every customer out there. So you've got to be selective. Okay. So that's kind of the interpretation I give to Jack Welch's quote. The next one is Michael Porter, a strategic trade, and he talks about trade-offs. This is a critical aspect. We'll come on to that in a minute. A company's choices, again, to prioritize certain activities over others. So this makes us all think something needs to give way to something else. Something goes and something doesn't go, okay? Leading to a clear and sustainable competitive position, okay? Clear and sustainable. Sustainable, repeatable. These are the types of adjectives that we can use. Reliable and clear, because you don't want to confuse not only employees, but you don't want to confuse the market. You don't want to confuse the customers. What do you stand for? So you've got to make some decisions around what to do, and most importantly, what not to do. So that's on the Michael Porter that links to Jack Welch's. The last one is Alex. The choices you make to achieve your ambition is much shorter. Again, the word choice comes in. Every one quote that put on the screen has got the word choice that you make to achieve your ambition. So to compete, to realize your vision. The ambition or vision could be sort of interchanged as words. So for me, these are just 3 of the probably tens and tens of quotes that you can find about strategy. And I'm hoping that, by over laboring on the points about choice, about decision, over laboring on the points of trade-offs and where to play, how to play, which we'll come on to in a minute, we can be a little bit clearer about what strategy can do and what value it can add to an entity. This is a little busy, but I just wanted to bring you a little bit of a case study or a case conversation from the airline industry here, Abdul & Co. Strategic trade-offs are a company's choice to prioritize, we've said earlier, certain activities over others, leading to a clear and sustainable competitive position. So if you think about, let's say Southwest Airlines or indeed any airline. So here we have a trade-off. In the gray box, I've got fleet standardization versus fleet diversification. Okay, so some legacy airlines have got a mixture of Boeings, a mixture of Airbuses, and they choose to go that way. Again, choose to go that way. Now, they know that there is one supplier, there is another supplier, there is not enough standardization, but there is an advantage for them to have that level of diversification of fleet. So they're not that bothered. However, there is another type of airline, Southwest or Ryanair in Europe, they choose to stick to one particular brand and one particular aircraft type. Now, that means for them an awful lot of other advantages and competitive advantages. operating one fleet to simplify the maintenance, the training, the operations, reducing costs. So once you've got all one fleet operating, and by the way, I'm not an advocate of the one fleet approach. I'm just explaining how, because I was there on the tarmac not long ago, a few years ago. One fleet means that the mechanics are all trained in one particular aircraft, the pilots, the cabin crew, interchangeability, resource planning, workforce planning. It becomes an easier enterprise to be managing that type of standardization. Okay, so Southwest has got 737s, and by the way, they're wonderful aircraft. I've flown to Muscat not long ago on a 737-800 MAX for the first time, and it was a really nice experience. Now, Emirates, on the other hand, and with Emirates also other legacy airlines, operate a diversified fleet. Now, the next one is short haul versus long haul. Again, some airlines prefer to and can only fly short haul. Some others have a longer range. Once again, there are trade-offs there that the organization has made. Some organizations will actually do both, short and long haul. Point to point, hub and spoke. I don't know if the team understands hub and spoke, but point to point, it gives you the opportunity to go from point A to point B. Hub and spoke means that connection is at the heart of that airline choice. Okay, so typically a hub and spoke airline will base themselves will leverage on the advantage of an airport. So of an airport of a certain magnitude. So for example, if you think about Atlanta, Hartsfield International Airport, you'll have Delta that lives there, if you like, and that the connection that comes out of that airport are obviously multifaceted. The same thing here in Qatar, where HIA, Hamad International Airport, developed now the world number one as rated by Skytrax. You've got the majority of the passengers are actually 85% of passengers roughly are actually connecting passengers. Okay, so there are some external factors that would influence the airline to be able to choose a point-to-point or hub and spoke. And finally, cost versus quality. Again, the low-cost carriers, the LCCs, choose a certain route. Other carriers might choose to spend more time and effort on the quality of service. So these are just 4 examples of trade-offs in the airline industry that are really important for organizations to clearly understand and to clearly define and decide which way do they go.
Yep. So, Alberto, just a question here is, since you are very experienced in aviation industry, okay, so these trade-offs, so you personally see that the value of strategy management perceived by the senior leadership in the aviation. So how do you do that? How do you make change to bring them to follow a certain standard process of strategy management? Yeah.
Well, look, if you think about any organization, let's think about an airline that decides actually that I only want to do point to point. Okay, I only want to fly from point to point without interconnectivity. Okay, so there is an awful lot that comes on the back of that very simplistic statement that I have just made. I've made it look and sound so simple, but actually it's not. Actually, the whole be-all, end-all of the organization lies on that statement. To start with, you're not going to have the so-called interline agreements with other carriers. In other words, somebody going from London to, I suppose, Edinburgh to London on a point-to-point carrier will need to pick up the baggage in Heathrow Airport or London Airport, wherever that airport is, and then re-check in for the other airline. Okay, that's the interline agreement that doesn't exist. Whereas if you're flying British Airways, you can go from Edinburgh all the way to Dubai, as you know, and you can do it either with BA themselves or with another airline, but there is an interconnectivity between the airlines. Okay, so that, for example, the baggage will go to its final destination for a start. That is terribly useful, unless you're changing actual airport infrastructure itself from Gatwick to Heathrow, or from Heathrow to Luton, or whatever. So back to your point, your question is extremely valid. That decision of point to point or hub and spoke makes a huge, huge difference, and could be the make or break of that airline.
So, if I understand correctly, okay, so once airline understands their strategy, so what they need to do and what is their focus, so everything should follow in the organization towards achieving that goal. So that's exactly is the overall the strategy management is all about. So right from the strategy planning to the strategy execution, maybe strategy formulation, planning, and execution. Yeah. So there is one question. Yeah, there is one question here, so that we can take it up. Mishika David, Deep, we would like to flash it. So, wouldn't the different layers of the organizational development operational plans rather than strategy? So here it is talking about operational plans against and strategy. So yeah, would you like to answer, Alberto?
Yeah, she's absolutely right. Mishika, you're absolutely spot on. Like what we said earlier, it's that we have a corporate strategy, one strategy, and then you have different types of words that we can use. We can use roadmap. We can use, an operational plan. Although, operational plan for me is a list of activities. What we need to do is we need to elevate it slightly, one step higher, because before you get to your operational activities or operational plan, even at departmental level, at head of level, if you like, you've still got to be able to translate the corporate strategy and what it means to the department that you are heading. Okay. So when I was, for example, leading on the commercial department of one organization recently, I was responsible for revenue. I was responsible for marketing, PR, and most importantly, most interestingly, also product development. So what that meant was that in order for me to be able to take that conversation down to my team, but still team of senior managers, we're not talking yet, the lowest level, I had to make sense of what was decided, including myself in the management team. What did that mean to the commercial department? What does it mean, and what activities do we need to unfold and cascade on the back of that? Meaning, do I have the capabilities and the competencies to be able to deliver even at my functional level, and so on? So it almost, every layer kind of replicates the layer up and the layer below. So everything is like a microcosm, but they're all facts are all interconnected. Does that? I don't know if that makes sense to the lady that asked the question. But thank you.
Yeah, I think so. You need to have a strategy, Mishika, if you are able to hear. So you need to have a strategy in place. It shows you the direction where you want to go, and then how you want to go there, and what are your plans, operational plans, each individual departments. So that your strategy should drive your operation plans. Okay. If you don't have strategy, and if you do only planning, maybe you do a good planning, but you will not achieve what you have to you intend to achieve. So strategy is the direction. Okay, so you need to have, and then plan is to execute that strategy. Yeah, Alberto. Yep.
Thank you. Again, the next slide again focuses on what I was saying earlier when I was talking about Southwest Airlines. You've got the circles in orange that are the decisions that these organizations like Southwest, and not only Southwest, have made. So, and then you can see that the rest of the circles, slightly smaller, are what's coming off on the back of those decisions. So, for example, limited passenger services, right? Limited passenger service. In other words, don't give too many frills okay, to the passenger. So no meals, no seat assignments, no baggage transfer, as I mentioned earlier, no connections, as I mentioned earlier as well. Okay. Now, does the passenger get maltreated? No. Why? Because the passenger is fully aware of what that organization's offering is. They know that they're not going to be able to assign themselves a seat like I would on a legacy airline. However, some airlines, and still in that space of Southwest and Ryanair, are beginning to offer these services as an add-on. So their strategy was born as no frills, but has now developed into a bolt-on service to the core service. The core service is, I will take you from A to B safely and hopefully on time. Although their on-time performance, I'm not talking about Southwest, but certainly the ones in Europe, is not particularly great. So I will take you there safely and on time with your baggage. Nothing else counts. That's the value added that the consumer is purchasing. Then all of a sudden, a few years ago now, probably a decade or so, now they've begun to, okay, I will offer you the seat, but you need to add, 10 euros. If you want to eat, there is a trolley that comes along the aisle. You can purchase your snacks, but you can purchase them. There is no baggage transfer because they're not part of the interline agreement. So that's a governmental and an IATA type decision, is not theirs. So if they want to join, they'll have to comply with a number of other regulations and rules. So that is limited passenger services. Now, frequent, reliable departures, yeah. Once again, very short turnarounds. In fact, if you've flown any of these airlines, you'll find that they land, and often the cabin crew are the ones. And I am generalizing. I'm not saying Southwest or anyone else. They will start doing the cleaning of the plane. Now, one airline I've got in mind from Europe has a 30 minutes. That's 30-minute turnaround time. The more the aircraft flies, the less it costs. So the turnaround is very important in terms of how long does that plane stay on the tarmac, because of course the airline pays the airport for the landing charges, okay, and for the parking charges. So the longer it stays, the more it pays. Okay, so these are the types of things that would determine the USP of an airline and the decision of the trade-offs that we said earlier on, Abdul.
Okay. Perfect. Yep.
Okay, so another colleague, Mark, defines strategy as a response to challenges that keep you from reaching your ambitions. So a response to the challenges that keep you from reaching your vision. Now, this particular type of quote or definition has been criticized, not necessarily by me, because it's all a question of semantics, in my opinion, but it's been criticized for being response means reactive. Okay, so a response means reactive. But actually, if you change the word response with strategy is your actions to the challenges, it becomes proactive. Okay, so here you have a very simple scheme or a very simple table that lists your challenges and your ambitions and writes down the responses as to what you want to do or what you want to become. And then it gives you the actions and the initiatives, or the initiatives and the actions that you need to entertain to hit those opportunities, or to mitigate the risks or the threats. He also gives us a little table there that says, okay, is this business critical, and does it concern the whole organization? So in his opinion, if it's got to do with the whole organization rather than just the department, if it's business critical, which is basically survival, then it is quoted or rated as A, and then B and C and D. So that's where he is going towards when it comes down to strategies of response to challenge that keep us from reaching our vision or ambitions. Now, we talked a lot about strategy, about making choices based on some assumptions and hypotheses. Now, these are two new words that I'm now sort of throwing in. And probably these are the two words that are the most important aspects of a strategy. Now, we said at the beginning, Abdul, that we do not have the crystal ball. We don't know what the next crisis is going to hit us with. What is it going to be? Okay. So, we need to make
here, I would like to, if you want me to step in. So basically, strategy management is something it's very important, and everybody understand it. How correctly they understand that differs, but primarily, everybody wants to achieve their goals in the organization, right? And there are different theories. Okay, so you have different methodologies, different theories based on the experience of the people, how they have achieved their success in the organizations. Okay, but actually, in reality, it all depends on the people. How the people in the organization, the senior managers, the key stakeholders, so how they collectively want to achieve things. Okay, so can you throw the importance of framework or methodology in the strategy execution? So if everything is wrong and if the methodology is correct, can we achieve strategy? Or if everything is right and methodology supports that, so what is your take in this? So how do you see the selection of methodology help them?
Yeah, well, look, methodologies and tools and techniques are, as the word says, tools and techniques. Okay, there is an art that goes with them. So we can all find out about these tools and techniques. We can all, sort of take them off the books, take them off the internet and websites. But you know what happens, Abdul, is that, the proof and the success or failure is in the way that we use these tools and techniques. Okay. Now, I'll tell you one thing real quick. Amongst some of the things I've got in terms of qualifications, I'm a black belt in terms of Lean Six Sigma, right? Now, that doesn't mean anything in terms of strategy. Why? Because actually, optimization and continuous improvements are not strategy. So we'll come on to that in a minute. But the point I'm making is that I used to be surrounded by master black belts, MBBs, analysts, scientists, and Einsteins, but they found it very hard to actually deploy those tools in the workplace. They were so mathematicians-like or analysts-like, they were unable to use the social skills to be able to translate whatever they were saying on the spreadsheets to reality. Which brings me to another concept about strategy. We don't want to overcomplicate it, but at the same time, and this is important, strategy is one of the questions I wanted to ask the audience. Strategy is actually not simplistic. It has simple tools, simple methodologies, right? When you see them up on a flip chart, but it is not a simplistic discipline. Why? Because it's about people, and people are not easy. We are not easy beings. We are complicated in nature. So we are a microcosm multiplied by the number of people in an entity. The complexity comes from, implementing, from, cascading, influencing, communicating, and so on and so forth. What has been, I think, agreed in the boardrooms. So, we will talk about methodologies in a minute. As you said at the beginning, you wanted me to cover some of the key methodologies and tools and techniques, and we will talk about those.
Yeah.
But my colleagues in the manufacturing floor with MBBs and so on couldn't couldn't get the benefits that what they qualified in was supposed to give them. So we just need to be a bit more balanced when it comes down to the on the one hand, having tools and techniques. On the other hand, and be a technician of strategy in our case. On the other hand, is how do we bring it to life? That's a really, really important element. The two are part of the same coin.
Very interesting. I'm also Six Sigma black belt and also certified in strategy. So I understand what exactly you're saying. Okay, so basically when you are using any operational excellence techniques like Six Sigma or Lean or whatever, the strategy tells you what you need to improve. There must be there could be 100 things can be improved in the organization. But what are the key things you want to improve, which will which help you to achieve your strategy or achieve your goals? So identify them and then apply on these techniques and tools on that, not everything else, not everywhere. So you focus where to apply these Six Sigma or Lean or Kaizen or whatever, and appropriately where it is required. Then it leads to a tremendous results. That is one of the very important things. Thank you, Alberto. Yeah. Please. Very interesting.
There's one more element, Abdul, if I may, in what you've just said, an additional piece, and that is that actually we are facilitators, okay, both in strategy, but also in whatever you were saying earlier, right? In terms of optimizing, in terms of continuous improvement and Kaizen. People like us, there's thousands of us around, we are facilitators. What does that mean? It means that, as you know, Kaizen is a bottom-up, right? It's a bottom-up sort of continuous improvement and so on. It's a bottom-up discipline, which means that, it's all about culture. It's all about the social aspect and the SMEs, the subject matter experts in the field that are experts in what they do, that need to be included, involved, and engaged in improving whatever they are doing. Okay, so again, there is the social aspect that is critical to, developing strategies and deploying them right in the field successfully. And also, there's one more element we will talk later. It's about course correction, because if you've gone down one road and it's not working, we need to be able to flex that strategy, right? To do potentially, I hope not, but potentially a U-turn or potentially a course correction. So don't think of a strategy as being set in stone in any of the religious books. No, you need to think of it as a dynamic and a flexible direction, okay, which must respond to market changes, crisis, disruptors coming into the business, a new technology coming up and how you can leverage it. You cannot just say, I did a strategy 12 months ago, 10 months ago, or even 8 months ago. And all of a sudden I've got a crisis. Oh, but sorry, that's my strategy and I'm not going to change it. If you don't, I'll tell you one thing, if you don't, you're going to lose big time. And you could take yourself to closing the business completely. I'll move on to my next slide.
I think this is a very important takeaway, Alberto. I think you said very nicely. So if you have any problem or if your hypothesis or assumptions, whatever, is not working and you realize that, so change immediately and then bring your strategy into the path again. So the course correction, do it as fast as possible, okay, and then proceed further for the next hurdle. So that's the key takeaway, Alberto. Yep. Yeah, please proceed.
Thank you for summarizing that. Now, this particular slide, where we talked a lot about this, and we will talk again in a minute, but I want to connect myself to your question about tools again. I've got a little window there that says playing to win, strategy cascade, strategy diamond, who, what, how frameworks. We are surrounded by all these tools. Now, there is, for the research that I have carried out for this presentation, but also for my experience in the field, there's an awful lot of overlaps. So, for example, if we're not familiar with playing to win strategy, it's a Roger Martin, A.G. Lafley book called Playing to Win. 2013, and it's a cascade of 5 building blocks or 5 elements. One is about what is your winning aspiration, right? So what are the USPs? What kind of guiding purpose do you want to give your organization? Where we will play, okay? We will talk about where to play, how to win. So these kinds of terminologies come up over and over again. So where we will play. So which playground is our space? So which customers are we going to go after? Which geographies, which territories are we going to work with? Products, services, distribution channels, customers, low-cost customers, high-value customers. Where do we play? Okay. How will we win? That's the third element of the cascade. How are we going to win this? Okay. What is our value proposition? What our competitors are doing? And how do we differentiate ourselves from those competitors? What makes us unique? Why do people want to come to you and not to the shop next door, not to the coffee shop next door? Now, there's 2 more elements here, Abdul, that of this cascade, Martin Leffley story, that are really important. And a lot of people don't pay enough attention to these 2 things that I'm going to talk about in a minute. They talk about, okay, this is our purpose. This is where we want to play. This is the geographies and so on. They forget, conveniently, in my opinion, the next one, which is what capabilities, right, do we need to have to win? Okay, so what capabilities? And we can open it up a little bit more in a minute when I talk about the 5th element. What are the resources? What are the competencies, the skills, the types of people that we need to fulfill the ambitions that we've set ourselves? And lastly, which is the 5th one, so 4 and 5 are really, really kind of often sort of forgotten. What are the management systems? So this means processes. This means the enablers that are required to support our choices. Okay. If we don't do these sorts, the 4 and the 5, we're at risk of failure. What is your take on it?
Yep.
Okay, so that's this is the playing to win cascade, and then there is another tool that's called what's it called? Strategy Diamond. Okay, so again, this is a form of a diamond. It's got 5 elements similar to the playing to win strategy, and you've got the arena or arenas at the top, which is about ecosystems and business domain. Now, it's important here to be specific, not to be vague. So include the product categories, market segments, geographical area, just like I've said earlier. I just don't want to repeat myself, but the point I'm making is that tools are tools. Different people have come with different things. And the strategy diamond comes from Donald Hambrick and James Frederickson. The other one came from the other 2 guys. But, we can talk about it with semantics. At the end of the day, the components, you can distill them into the vital few and not even worry about the type of tool, but you can focus on the content of those tools. Now, there's 5 tests that I thought are quite important to evaluate a good strategy. Okay. Do we really have a strategy? Do we really know what we're doing? I don't know. Let's have a look at it. Let's take that strategy at the end of a strategy workshop, which can either be a fresh strategy or a refresh, and let's sort of put it through the washing machine and see if it cleans up the 5 tests. Okay, one of which is strategy must clearly define how the company will deliver unique value. So now we are talking about, I'm beginning to speak about value. Okay, it's value proposition, it's USP, unique selling proposition. Value is a really important word, one single word, in my opinion. Okay, so there is a couple of definitions that come to mind that are really kind of stuck in my mind. Number one is value is that for which the customer is willingly and knowingly ready to pay for. I repeat, value is that for which the customer is willingly and knowingly ready to pay for. Okay, so this is an important element, because if the customer doesn't need any non-value added that you are inserting, then they should not pay for it. Okay, so unique value, what do you stand for? Deliver what you said on the tin. The next bit is about outlining the value chain, which follows the previous element. Okay, so the value chain, so people that operate in the optimization space, value stream mapping is a tool that they would normally use. And these kind of value stream mapping come in different formats again. But the important element here is, level 1, level 2, level 3. And the various levels as you go down become more and more detailed. And you start from a level 1, which is high level in terms of 4 or 5 single boxes. And then you start sort of taking it down to the lower level, where you identify all the players in the exercise or the fulfillment of that service. You'll be able to understand what are these players doing for the value delivered to that customer. And you can assess what they do, e.g., are they adding value to the ultimate goal of delivering a unique value to the consumer, to the people that buy our services. So value chain is really cool. And I really love that activity because it's a very social activity. It involves people. You cannot do it on your own. And also identifies the activities, but also the resources and the capabilities that people have to deliver those. We talked a lot about choices of trade-offs. You cannot be everything to everybody. You need to choose what not to do. And then the strategy should ensure that all parts of the value chain fit together. Okay, this is going back to the previous point that we made with the lady that questioned it. And I said about a clear line of sight. All parts are going to have to fit together and not be inconsistent, but being consistent, which enhances the overall effectiveness and the sustainability in terms of durability of that strategy. Last but not least, the successful strategy requires continuity and a long-term perspective. Now, let's demystify a comment here. Long-term perspective. Yes, we can talk about strategies for the next 3, 5, even 10 years. Okay, but we said earlier, the world has become much more volatile. It's become much more vulnerable and uncertain, which doesn't allow us to be so, long-termists. We need to be able to look long-term and have a long-term perspective, but we need to be able to flex and have much shorter time horizons. And by that, I mean 12 months, to deliver the pit stops and milestones along the way. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, this again, it's something else that Vaughan Broderick came up with, and it just shows that for me and for us, as we discuss in this, strategy is at the foundation. And I think you said it earlier, Abdul. And off the back of that, you can then design your organization. You can decide what type of leadership you want in it, the processes and the systems to adopt, the tools and the techniques, the capabilities to hire in or to bring in, whether it be people in sourcing or outsourcing with partners, the overall ecosystem that supports the exploration of many ideas through programs and networks and stakeholders. And finally, very important element I mentioned earlier as well is the culture of the business. Okay, how do things get done around here? Okay, the culture of the business. So a lot of these concepts come back again, and they're extremely important and impactful to the success, failure, mediocrity of a strategy. Now, at this point, we pause for a very moment, and we talked about simplicity of a strategy, non-simplicity of a strategy. We talked about how many strategies are there, and we answered that question. And my next question would have been, why is it that many leaders shy away from leading a strategy? Okay, why is it that, you know, we talk to people and they're at a senior level and they don't really get involved in it?
Yeah. In my experience, Alberto, so I was the vice president for strategy and planning somewhere long back. Actually, it's in 2008, 2009. Okay. So when we offered a role for lead the strategy team, so it's very uncertain. Okay. So leading a strategy team needs a lot of courage to act, because it's there is no guarantee that your project will be successful. So you need to accept the uncertainty, and you need to be willing to work with the people. Okay, take the things and get them aligned. Have patience, stick to the discipline of a methodology. Okay, so usually people jump from strategy to operations very often. Okay, so you need to be very strategic in your discipline, and also you need to have a trust in your strategy. Okay, so you need to believe that this is going to make organization success. So that is the reason, since there is a lot of uncertainty, so senior managers or senior leaders, they don't want to take up the responsibility to lead the strategy transformations. So what do you think, Alberto, in your experience?
Spot on. I mean, look, we talked about strategy being a choice, being decision making. Okay, wow, decision making. So you got to say which way to go. You've got to make a decision which way to go, which can make the make or break of your organization. And what if that decision is wrong, right? What if that market you expanded into was not the right decision? What will happen to you, right? So unfortunately, there is a scare, a worry, an anxiety that dominates this topic, which predilects or favors the more tactical leadership style. Firefighting, doing things now for the next sort of 3 months, and shying away from making long-term strategic decisions that will have long-standing, long-term impact on your organization. And a lot of CEOs will not last, unfortunately, a long time, because one, you're just as good as your last decision. You might have made 9 great decisions and you end up making one at the end, one wrong move, and that one move will essentially tarnish 9 previous moves that you made that were spot on, right? So there's a lot of fear. So the fear factor in the decision making is one of the critical elements why people don't go into it, and they kind of shield themselves against the more tactical, activities that are needed to do. Thank you for that. That's a very good point.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. So, any questions from the audience? So you have more things to talk about, Alberto, on the use cases. Mm-hmm.
I will, yeah. I will just cover a couple of tools, maybe just skim through, because I've covered an awful lot of the principles, and then we go into some use case. These are some of the answers to the questions that we posed, and some of the theories that I wanted to really quickly cover. Practical approaches about strategy. There is a need for a paradigm shift. Year-long planning, benchmarking against your competitors, yes, but don't copy them. Put innovation into strategy. It's not a secret job. It is a social job. analytics and PowerPoints up to a point, but don't be frozen by these elements. Without a strategy, you will basically not be able, like Abdul said, you will not be able to survive in the longer term. We fill our times with whatever we want. We think that the boss wants one thing and we'll do it. It's very reactive. It doesn't offer the purpose, the direction. How beautiful would it be if people in the organization were fully aligned, right, to delivering whatever it was decided internally? How beautiful would that be? Okay, without a strategy, time and resources are easily wasted. Yeah, piecemeal, disparate activities and so on. This made me laugh. I don't know if you guys have seen this picture someplace else. You know, this plumber was asked, why didn't you remove the rock? He said, no, I couldn't remove the rock. The rock is not my job. I don't know what's underneath it. It might be a spider. It might be a snake. You know, I had to build the pipes around it. Okay. And here is the element of the team, the social aspect, the synergies, and so on, which I keep stressing out when it comes down to developing and deploying a strategy. Now, this is a picture, it's a real picture. Actually, I took this in Qatar. And all I wanted to say with this slide, and I will move on very quickly, that strategies, Abdul, are not only at corporate level. The country has to have a macroeconomic outlook, and also a country is having to deal with the crisis, the difficulties, the challenges, and the opportunities that a corporate will need to deal with. So I just wanted to, you know, kind of like macro project this conversation to a country level, not only at corporate level.
Perfect.
I also wanted to share with you another concept, which is called the hedgehog concept. And I'm not sure if you've come across it. It's a Jim Collins Good to Great part of a book. And that's his picture there in black and white. So essentially a pencil drawing. Essentially, the hedgehog concept is based on the story, on a tale where a fox tries to catch him. And the fox, we all know, is extremely agile, very fast, and very, you know, somewhat intelligent. And the hedgehog is a little animal that hides underneath the growth, the foliage, and does move fast. I've seen one or two hedgehogs in my life, not in Qatar, of course, but certainly in the UK. They do go quite quickly, but not as fast as a fox. So the fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one thing. And what that one thing is to defend himself using those prickles and the spikes on top of his body. And the moment that the fox gets close to it, his little nose and mouth get annoyed by this, and she's not able, the fox, to make a meal out of the hedgehog. Now, this concept, though, revolves around what are you passionate about? What's your passion as a business? What drives your money-making exercise? How do you make revenue? How do you make profit? And what you can be best in the world at. I mean, in the world is obviously an exaggeration, but in your domain. Okay. Now, in the middle of that lies the hedgehog, the concept that's what your strategy, your USP is. Now, I'm a little bit critical of this particular concept in my interpretation, and because it's what I call an inside-out approach. Okay, inside out means that you can have a passion, you can drive money, and you can be really good at it. But guess what? The market doesn't want what you want to do. Okay, so it is an inside-out approach, which we just need to be cautious about, because we should often start from what the market wants and then work our way backwards into within our organization. So it's a cute little concept, and it depicts an inside-out perspective rather than an outside-in. But I suppose if it gets complemented by an outside-in, it can be it can be fun. Now, one of the tests of leadership is the ability to recognize problem before it becomes an emergency. Okay, Arnold Glasow shares us this thing. My reason for putting this up on screen is the focus on leadership, because unfortunately, even the best leaders cannot always see where an issue can become an emergency because nobody's got the crystal ball. But there is an element of sensitivity about, the moment that you're dealing with a problem, with a challenge, you just need to understand if that challenge becomes an emergency early, not at the last minute. So I guess I've got a couple more questions. Perhaps we can debate, Abdul, the questions around.
Yeah. So we have a couple of questions. Very interesting. So Khalid Said Ahmad. Okay. So he posed a question. Almost all the books in strategy or papers, they say 95% strategies fail. So do we do strategy or not? Okay. So this is very interesting, Khalid. Yeah. So what do you think, Alberto?
Right. A very interesting point. Why do we do something that mostly fails? Right. Well, we do it because we need to get better at it. And we need to continue to do it because we need to get better at it. And this is part of the reasons why we do these types of talk shows and we do these types of conversations to upskill ourselves, including anyone in this room, including myself. Nobody was born learned. We need to be able to learn our skills and trade better and better. But why do they fail? That's the question, right? Maybe that 95% is a very high number, but there is certainly and thank you, Khalid, and thank you. I've just noticed that it's you. It's a colleague of mine. So thank you. But why do they fail? Okay, so we don't quite know why they fail, do we? But actually, we do. They fail because they are often designed in the boardrooms. They are often incomplete in understanding the where to play and how to win perspectives. And most importantly, they seem to fail because the cascade of the strategy, the cascade, the communication, the implementation, the deployment loses the momentum. One of the key things that, we go out and do a strategy refresh, don't we, in a faraway place, right? How many times have we attended this sort of retreats? Oh, God damn it. Honestly, we go there, we spend 2 days when it's, when it goes well, or a week when it goes bad. And you spend God knows how many dollars, thousands of dollars. And we come back and within 3 days, we've lost the momentum. We need to ensure that we continue that momentum. We need to ensure that we entrust whatever was decided in the boardrooms and the retreats, and we sort of implement it. Now, there's one point here that I would also like to throw up there with Khalid and you, and that's about whose responsibility is it, right? We talk about failure, but we also talk about actors. So somebody needs to be responsible, right, for a failure. So if strategy is everybody's responsibility, it means that 95% of us are failing. So whose responsibility is it? Or do we go back to our offices and it says, oh, it's his responsibility, and he says, no, it's her responsibility, and so on. So, and we step into a blame culture and so on and so forth, right? And we can talk about strategy management office, we can talk about PMOs, and we can talk about other layers in the organization, and they do make a big, big, big impact positively. But we also need to talk about, how do we live and breathe the strategy? How do we walk the talk daily? How do we engage people in breathing and living again those principles? not the theoretical principles, the decisions that we made in that retreat. How do our people implement them? See what I mean? And finally, last but not least, how do we close the loop? How do we ask them, after 3 months or 2 months or a month, listen, is this working? Right? Is this change that we made in the strategy working? Or do we need to do something different? What are the customers going to sales and marketing, right? They've got the finger on the pulse. What are the customers telling us? How is the service perceived by those customers, consumers, and people, right? Now, it's not easy. It demands that we put the skin in the game. I don't know if that's answered Khaled's query.
Yeah, just to add a couple of words to you, Khalid. Basically, you have a strategy. You need to have a robust, formulated strategy in the first place, and then you need to execute this strategy. So, majority of strategy fails during the strategy execution. Okay? So, strategy execution takes like 98% of your efforts. Everybody needs to be aligned towards that. So, irrespective of whether 95% strategies fail or succeed, you need to have a strategy in place. Because if you don't have strategy, anyway, you don't even know that you are failing or you are succeeding. You don't even know. So, you need to have a strategy in place. But you need to know as an organization, so how to execute it consistently and repeatedly in a given circumstances. So I'll just give an example. It is connected to our previous discussion. So during maybe 2010, 11, so we were defining some strategies. And then as an outcome of this is to introduce 3 new products. Okay. The first product terribly failed. Terribly failed. Okay. So everybody got against the idea of a strategy. And then they said that I think this approach is not going to work because that was the new product introduction for that particular segment was terribly failed. Then the senior leaders, they did not give up. Actually, I was one of the leadership team, so we did not give up. So we tried. Okay, guys, it does not mean that we know the reason why it is failed. The second product, when we launched, it was a blockbuster. Okay, so I'll just give a size of the success. So it was 250,000 tons a year sales before strategy. After strategy, it was a 3 million tons of sales. So it was like a huge blockbuster, and it covered everything. Now the organization became a million, like a $400 million company to like a $2 billion company in a course of a year or so. So you need to have strategy, whether you are failing or not. You need to have strategy. You need to make sure that you understand it, try it again, you correct it, and then this cycle has to continue. And the faster you do this, there is a more chance that you succeed. I think that's my point here. Khalid, if it is, you may tell whatever. So there is one more question from Meshika. So Alberto, it's to you. In your opinion, how critical is change management? I think it's very important in implementing strategy to prevail failure. Yeah.
I love it. Mashika, look, strategy leads to innovation. Innovation needs to transformation. And transformation is leadership led. Now, change is part of that mix. Transformation and change are interchangeable. It's all about change. There's one thing that we know, that is nothing is going to be unchanged. Everything's going to change, right? So one constant is that there is change. Now, change management, implementing the strategy to prevent the failure. Okay, so we're talking about strategy potentially failing and change management that comes in as a discipline to support strategy so it doesn't fail. Absolutely an interchangeable discipline, that of change management. So when we implemented the transformation in the postal operator in Qatar, a critical section, if you like, was that of change management. Change management supported the implementation of the strategy. In what way? Okay, so competencies, so capabilities and skills. Okay, so internal competencies, capabilities, and skills need to be changed in order to fulfill those transformational ambitions. Change management came in. We created change agents and trained and coached them, and they became change advocates in the workplace under the supervision and umbrella of the change management department, if you like, which is part of HR. So, change management is a critical part of a strategy. It helps it from failing. How can we introduce a new product if we haven't made the changes that enable that product to be launched? Okay, there's many examples. I don't want to bore you with examples, but another one that springs to mind is when COVID hit, we had to react very, very quickly. Okay, as an industry, logistics. Okay, so in order to do that, the operations department that is responsible for delivering the operations in the field, and we wanted to deliver, and we did deliver medicines. Okay, we delivered medicines to patients as the pharmacies were closed. Change management supported that strategy. Strategy was quickly modified, back to Abdul's point, react very quickly. And we were able to leverage the change management team to support us in the changes required for operations to implement. So coaching, training, standard operating procedures, different methodologies, different regulations, different regulatory requirements as you're delivering medicines. You are complying now with the Ministry of Public Health. Okay, so change management is an integral part of the strategy, innovation, and leadership. I don't know if that really, I don't want to oversimplify it, but at the same time, I don't want to overlabor the point.
Yeah. Yep. So we have a few more questions. We'll take it up. So we have a dedicated time at the end of the show. Okay. So let us try to, because we have like around 35 minutes time limit left. Okay. So let us try to
and
cover
go
what
fast.
we wanted to. Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
So any more points, Alberto? So can I share my screen and do
Yes,
it?
please.
You have few.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let me share my screen. Deep, you might help me. Share screen. Maybe it's easy. Against two monitors. Share screen. Okay. I'll take the full screen. Deep, if you are able to hear me, I can. Is my screen visible? Oh, yeah. So Deep, I think let me take this. So it is coming up like this. So let me do it. So how can I do that? So yeah. So let me take it up from here. Yeah. So let me do that. So Deep, can you share me my slide if you prefer to do it? No. So let me try again. Stop screen share. Okay, so let me present it. Deep, can you help me to share the presentation if you have, or I'll just let me share my screen. Just let me know if you're able to get it. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So let me talk about this. If you are able to hear me, yeah. So I think so. This is I would like to talk about the things here. So, what are the key challenges in strategy management? So, based on our experience. So, here I would like to talk about few points. Lack of clear objectives and ownership. So, this is I just try to summarize these 9 points. It could help all of you. So lack of clear objectives and ownership, that means you need to define strategic objectives. You might call them objectives or goals. So you need to define them properly. There should not be any ambiguity of that very clearly. So if you don't define them, if you and then the test of this definition is you need to have a very clearly defined measures against each objective, and then how this objective is closing your value gap in the strategy. So that's how the cause and effect is. Okay. So the second one is, so you need to have a robust project management. So when you do a strategy implementation, so you define a strategy execution or a strategy implementation project. So it's a combination of multiple initiatives. Okay, so all these initiatives need to be work in sync to get the strategy outcome. So you need to have a robust strategy uh, implementation plan. Okay, so I lost the screen, Nadeep. Yeah, what happened? Yeah. So you need to have a robust project management to achieve your strategy execution, because there are in the strategy there will be multiple projects. They need to be completed in sync. Okay. So you need to do them proper project management to make a decent strategy execution. So inadequate resources. So what happens is usually we do a strategy plan and we do strategy team and everything in place, but you don't put enough resources for that. So it could be a people, it could be budget, or it could be time from the senior leadership. If you don't do put enough resources, so that your strategy tend to fail. So another challenge is insufficient monitoring and control. Maybe Ramesh, your answer is this: insufficient monitoring and control. That means you need to have a proper strategy reviews where you check all the how the performance is going on against the plan, and any corrective actions need to be done. If there is any emerging strategies are popping up, so you need to correct even the strategy itself. Okay, so this monitoring and control through a strategy review meetings is very critical for you. So poor communication. So communication is something which is very 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 critical. So the more you communicate, there is a more chance of success. So here again, the change management, the culture, everything is directly linked to the communication. So you need to find different ways to communicate. Okay, and then you keep on communicating as head of strategy or head of your transformation program. So one of the major job is to do proper communication. Okay, so training and development. So if you don't invest much on training and development of your team for any transformation projects, so there is a tend to be they tend to fail. So the people plan very nicely, they do proper project management and everything, but they forget to put training and development part for the team members who are doing it. So that is one thing, in my opinion, is one of the important. Inconsistent leadership. This is the reason I put lost. It's not. It actually that should come first. Actually, the inconsistent leadership means when there is an operational crisis, the business leaders tend to focus on that and they forget that strategic direction again. Okay, so they start firefighting and then they got off track. So there could be many distractions. There could be many such events or operational crisis. So consistently, the leadership needs to be focused on the strategy, and then they must try to achieve their strategies. Okay. The siloed operations means, so these organizations, whether we like it or not, they work in departments. The moment you call it as a department, it's a silo. Again, that's what we're saying. You need to have a departmental plans. So, okay. So there is, I'm against that actually. So you need to have some sort of plans where you work with the cross-functional teams as much as possible. The more cross-functional teams you work, the better success percentage for your any strategy or any other initiatives. So resistance to change, again, change management. Here it's very important, especially when you are change management is important, as Alberto nicely said, is very critical because not all people are supporting your initiative. Some people directly agree and support you. Some people they keep quiet inside their heart. They think that this is not going to work. They don't believe. Some people directly they do against the project. Okay, so you need to find them, you need to nurture them, try to help them to understand, bring them to the table. If somebody is not coming, then find a way to do it. Maybe he's not part of the project, or he's out of the company himself. I don't know. There could be many ways to handle them, but change management and then culture is very very critical. So you cannot stop that. Okay, so that is very critical. So now I would like to give a quick 5-minute brief on the tool, what we talk about the FRU strategy. Then followed by that, maybe I'll just take 10 minutes to give a briefing on the strategy tool. Where it's a comprehensive strategy management tool where you can do all whatever we discussed so far through a systems driven approach. That's what we do it. And then we spent like 15 minutes, Alberto, if you wish. So talk about the more questions which will help the participants to execute their strategy. Okay. So let us do that. Okay. So let us do that. So let me present it, share my screen. I hope I can make this time successful. I don't know, but let me try. Okay. I'm just sharing entire screen, Deep, if you are able to see me. Okay. If you are able to see me, just please let me know. Okay. If you, Alberto, are you able to see my screen system? Yes. Yeah, it's a strategy, FRU strategy screen. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just quickly telling up, this is a home page. Deep, you might join it and just let me know this because it's a very important stage. You can join the board and just guide us. Okay. So FRU strategy is a comprehensive strategy management solution where we talk about strategy analysis, the balance scorecard, OKR, frameworks, and then all things what we do for the initiative management, the strategy reviews, the project management, people, everything is connected to the strategy one way or other. So I'll just take you to one thing. So I'll just talk about scorecard. Okay. So we talk about, let us say, so we have like a performance balance scorecard. So you can have something like that. So you can have an overall performance, then you can have some sort of the perspective performance. Okay, so you can have internal processes or enablers, whatever. Okay, so this is something you can have it. Then strategy map, which is very very critical for us. Okay, so I'll just try to take you through that. So let me clear it. Okay, so in the strategy map, so what we do is, so this is a strategy map in the system. So it is a very systems driven approach. So it's very interactive strategy map. So we have 4 perspectives: financial, customer, internal, and so you can change the names, by the way, you can define. So for example, if you have grow revenues, if you click on them, okay, so you have all the performance of this particular strategic objectives can be seen. So here you see it about the overall performance, the measures related to it. Okay, and then you have initiatives, those initiatives connected to this particular strategic objective. And then we have risks and compliances also can be seen. So all the way, the people connected to this particular strategic objective also can be seen from this. Okay, so what you can do is you can drill down also. So grow revenues, if you double click on it, so you will open another window where you can see the objective story. So objective story can be seen. So objective story will help you to understand the overall the picture of the story. Likewise, so you can see like this. This is the objective story. So what are the measures connected to it? What are the initiatives? The details. Likewise, you can drill down. If you want to look at this particular initiative, you can double click on it, and then you can just do the system will open in another window where you can see it. So you can see the overall performance right from the strategy map. You can see the overall performance of entire organization, whether it could be objective performance or initiative performance or anything, or you talk about anything else. So give me 1 second. Yeah. So here, basically, if you want to communicate to anybody, it is connected to the strategy communication. So you can just click on the strategy communication from here itself. So you can make direct communication with anybody. Okay, I just kept multiple screens open, so that's the reason. You can see the so the communication part will be there. Okay. So you can send any emails or messages to the individuals directly from the system, and then through your email ID, and then so make sure that it is get connected to them. Okay. So likewise, so you can just send an email. I'm not sure whether it is okay. So likewise, so you can have all the things managed through systems driven approach. So you can also have some sort of like okay. So let me take you to one more step back. Oops, okay. So performance dashboards. So let me see. I think this I logged in for a long time, and I need to log off and log in sometime. Yeah. So let me see that. Okay. So let me show you one more example in this is, so when you talk about balance scorecard, so you can define all your balance scorecard perspectives, themes, and objectives. So you can define your strategic objectives as I said you. So you can define measures. So so likewise, you can define all your objectives, measures, everything in the system. Then you can also manage your strategy reviews. So this will tell you how these individual bits and pieces can be connected together. So you have enterprise project management office. All these things can be connected together. Okay. You can also have a budgeting process. So business planning and budgeting can be done through a system. All are connected to the strategy. Okay. So you can have a business process also. So if it is possible for me to show you a business process, okay. So you define business process. I'll just show you one matrix, the outcome in a given time. Okay. So I can show you some so very nice charts how these business processes are connected. So let me do that, because I kept it open for a long time. So let me log in and show you some stuff here. Okay. Yeah. So when you talk about business processes, so I'll just show. So you can create all your business processes. Okay. So you can just generate it. So system will show you how to operate the business processes. The matrix, if you talk about. So you can share that all strategic objectives, then you have a business processes, then you can all connect them. So this is how you give a priority for each business process, okay, and then you can measure them. So Alberto, here all these business processes can be aligned to the strategy, and then
Yeah.
which business process is very important for you to achieve your strategy execution. So you can prioritize through this matrix, and then
Yes.
apply your methodologies, whatever you choose.
Mhm.
Like we call it as a BPX methodology. So it could be ERP automation or Lean Six Sigma or whatever. So
Yeah.
likewise, so we have like a OKR framework. So you can define your OKRs, organizational goals, objectives, initiatives, and then manage your initiatives, how to achieve them. So very interesting organizational performance. So we have like a ESG assessment, the strategy focused organization, which is a balanced scorecard framework assessment, and then also the organizational health index. So I just open one. So when you do a ESG assessment, so some sort of okay, so like when you do okay, so it could be 2003. Yeah, if there is any data, let me show you. Yeah, when you do assessment, so likewise, so you can know exactly what where we are standing from the ESG point of view, or an SFO point of view, or an organizational health index point of view. Okay, so likewise, this organizational health performance will tell you how you are achieving your strategic results. Okay, so in the system, everything is get connected. So with the people performance, we have like an individual performance, the team performance, and 360-degree review. These three, if you do the weighted average, and then you can get the people performance. So at the same time, we have something called nine box model and then competency management. So these all are aligned. So how this is aligned, I'll show you one. Okay, so when you talk about people objectives, okay, so let me take one. So you can link the strategic objectives to the people objectives. The moment you link it here, so it's a top down and bottom up links are taken in place. So the moment you connect them, so you will get this in the strategy map directly, and then everybody knows that these are connected ones. Similarly, so if you have like a competency based management, so you can define your competencies. So you can define your competency groups, different type of competencies, roles. Then how you close this competencies. So can be scheduled through some particular training schedules. Even the succession planning can be done here. Okay. So every organization have to monitor risk and compliance. So it cannot be separate from the strategy. So you have a risk and actions. So you can do risk actions. For example, if you have particular risk actions, anything. Okay, so you can take any one of it. So you can see the heat maps and you can see what is the overall performance of the risks. Similarly, compliance. So you have a compliance calendar. So what are the compliance activities you need to do over a period of time in that particular year or so, you can do that. Everything is connected to strategy. So right from the balance scorecard definition to the execution of strategy is there. Interestingly, so the strategy analysis, that's where you define organization structure. Here we talk about mission, vision, and values. The analysis, I'll just drill down into analysis. So, Alberto, you had a very nice slide for your SWOT and PESTEL you talk
Mhm.
about. So you can do the SWOT, PESTEL, the porters, and everything. It can be done. Okay. So if you do it properly, for example, okay. So you can define your strengths, weaknesses. Okay, and then you can also look at the dashboards. So if you look at the dashboard, so you can see all your dashboards active. For example, I liked your way. So you talk about opportunities and threats to start with. Then you talk about strength and weaknesses. Okay, so individual strengths and weaknesses and everything can be seen very nicely. Even you can have your competitor information also into this. Okay, so likewise, So I'll just show you at the end of the day. So what is most important is you need to have a very nice mechanism to find, let us say, find a way to measure your KPIs. Okay. So if you have something, let us say I'm taking here one objective for grow revenues. So you have a different measures like product groups or whatever. So you can see where we are standing. So in the right side, you can see the different details also if you want. So there are more hidden values. So you can just check it. Likewise, you can have all the visibility upfront. So the SFO, the strategy focused organization assessment, if you want to do it, how strategy execution is going on. So this is where Alberto, here you talk about the social. Okay, so you can take the whole organizational transformation. Okay, and then you can measure how this is going on. Likewise, yeah. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let me just try to generate. So you can see what is going on. Okay. So let me do you here. Mhm. Happen. Okay. So let me try once again. Okay. Okay. So we can have a strategy focused organization. I had a very nice slide and then I lost it. Okay. So I have to bring my technical experts. So here you see here. So we can see what happened last year and last period basically. So on how this overall strategy is going on. Okay, it's through SFO assessment, how it is going on. So we can see all of these things in the system, and so you can also save a lot of files and supporting documents also. Yeah, very interesting. It's in the budgeting, so you can define your capital expenditures, your operational expenditures, and strategic expenditures. Finally, you can come up with your financial statements also. Okay, so this is like so overall. I don't want to make it as a demo, but this is I would like to talk about initiative. Just let me talk about the initiative only. Initiative story is basically, if you are talking about any initiative. Okay, so let us say, this is initiative story where a project management typically update the data on a month-on-month basis, and then you can review. So this the whole story of the project will tell you how this the update will happen. Okay, all the milestones are achieved or not, and then you can also see the Gantt chart where what is happening with this project. Everything is connected. You can also upload files. So I think this is a very quick overview. I don't want to take time, but so limited time. So I would like to stop sharing screen. So we do have a scenario planning. So value gap closures. So we'll talk about sometime more details dedicated to that. Okay. So I'll just try to, yeah, I think that's a very quick navigation in a given time. Okay. Uh, uh, yeah. So we are open now to the questions. Please feel free. It's not easy to cover everything in one simple session. I think Alberto has tried very nicely to cover very nice, very complicated concept of strategy management. Made it very simple. So let us take it up, Alberto. So whether let us do a quick review of what we have discussed so far. Okay. So let us take one by one. Okay. So when we do a strategy implementation or strategy management, okay, so we have different things like strategy formulation. Then you have a strategy planning part, the outcome of that. Then you have a strategy execution part. Okay, so whatever you use. So here you come up with the projects, objectives, the KPIs, performance reviews. There are multiple things. Now let us take bits and pieces. In the strategy formulation, okay, the consultants like you, me, and anybody else. So we facilitate basically. the organizational heads, the CEO, who knows the industry, who knows their business. Okay, he is the one who should lead. So, what do you think, Alberto?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've all done this kind of refresh or outright strategy sort of formulation, and we've had them in the offices, in the retreats, and so on. You're right. We do need to have the key players, right, for it to be successful. We need to have the key players in the room. We need to have the SMEs and so on. And with the help of, as you said, a strategy facilitator, we're able to tease out what are the what are the different elements of how it's gone in the past. I mean, the one thing that an established organization has, it has legacy information and data, okay, which is also very important. Whereas a startup, I suppose, doesn't have that kind of benefit. It only needs to rely on a competitors analysis to be able to understand, what would happen to them if they did this, and what would happen to them. We call it scenario planning, right? We call it scenario planning. Now, the facilitator will be able to interrogate the different SMEs to understand, what are the directions that they feel that the organization should follow, but at the same time, there has to be a debate, and this is again that element of strategy formulation, of trade-offs. Okay, what do we do? And even in the retreats and even in the strategy boardrooms, you will find that Abdul is pulling towards that way because it's a point of view. It's a social discipline, right? You believe in this and he believes in the other. So there will be some trade-offs to make. And we do need to have, this goes back to one of the slides I was going to talk about, is about leadership. What kind of leadership are you needing to have to drive strategy as opposed to being a CEO? I mean, do you want to be a democratic leader? Meaning, are we going to take every single opinion, right, into consideration? Or do you want to be an autocratic leader? So I'm going from democratic to autocratic, completely different opposites. And obviously, as always, the answer is in the middle. So we need to make some decisions. And as I said many times over, it's not the facilitator, but it's the persons in charge of that business, is the management team that need to discuss where and how we go, where to win, where to play, the trade-offs, the capabilities. The HR person will be there as a CHRO, will understand the competencies required. So each person in that forum is intelligent enough to understand the implications of what is being discussed onto them. In other words, what are they going to do to support that strategy moving forward? I repeat, if I was in a CHRO and we are discussing entering a new market, entering a new geography, or developing a new product or sets of products, I am clever enough as a CHRO, not me, but the CHRO would be clever enough to understand what are the competencies that I need to bring into the organization. And he or she will also know, to be honest, what do I already have? And therefore, she will understand the gap or the delta between where I am in terms of competencies and skills and capabilities, and where I need to be to deliver the CEO direction. Wow, isn't it amazing? Right? And then she will say, hang on a minute, I cannot do this within 3 months. To bring in capabilities and competencies of at this level, of this discipline, I need 6 months to be able to bring in the resources. And he will say, no, we don't have 6 months. Okay, so we have this kind of debate, which is an extremely interesting debate, and I've been there. And the commercial director will say, I will launch this product in 3 weeks. Are you ready for it? And operations will say, you're out of your mind. I'm not ready by any means. I need X. So these discussions, Abdul, are really, this is the point of my particular intervention here. It's practical, very real life. And I smile as I think, and I'm sure some of the delegates, if they're still on, from the companies I worked with, they will also smile with me because I know what I'm thinking. And these types of debates are really common anywhere in the world. Now, once we come out of that room, then we need to be aligned and supportive. Okay, and we need to get every stops out to be able to make things happen. Okay, so it is an exciting, I love it. It's an exciting space, not only as a facilitator, to be honest, I'll be honest with you, but also and primarily as a doer, as an executive. And again, people online, if they are from organizations I worked with, including Khaled and others, will understand that walking the talk is a completely different animal from just talking. And being in charge of a department or of a section or of an organization is a very exciting place to be. Really, for me, facilitation is key, and I'm passionate about it. But in addition to that, leading is even more exciting. And leading people, not only leading, facts and processes, but leading people for them to do what we got to do. Anyway, so that's my take on what you were asking.
Excellent. I think that's very important that the CEO has to lead the program. There is no delegation in strategy, especially strategy. There is nothing called delegation. You must be there and lead, okay, and then nurture the culture of strategy execution. That is very, very critical. Now, one important point in this is you have a lot of initiatives, like projects in the organization. The larger the organization, you have more initiatives. Some initiatives, favored by some departmental managers or something. At the end of the day, you need to make sure that all these initiatives are aligned towards strategy. If there is no misalignment, so there is no point in doing this project. Don't waste your resources. So, your experience in the aviation industry, the postal, so it's very huge departments, companies. So how did you do that? So you do this through PMO kind of thing. So what is your experience?
Yeah, it's a very good point. And I intimated at this point earlier in terms of whose responsibility is it not to do what we said in the retreat, but actually whose responsibility to monitor it, to make sure that these things happen. It is the responsibility of the functional managers. Okay, I'll start from that point. And there is also a PMO that is responsible for ensuring that activities are tracked, but not to do the things, not to do the stuff, but actually to track and monitor and project manage. Now, sometimes, for convenience, when the functional manager doesn't do what he was supposed to do, it becomes a problem for the PMO program manager because he or she is behind the delivery, right? The conflict occurs between the PMO and the functions. Okay, so there's another thing that comes. It's conflict that comes on the back of strategy. Okay, so why is it a conflict? Because we said we were going to make this initiative happen by the 15th of June. We're now the 15th of July. We're a month later and it hasn't happened. Okay, so what? The PMO reports it, and the office meets, the management team meets together, and the CEO will ask the question as to, PMO, show us where you're at and what is the visual, because the visuality will be what the PMO is responsible for. And the questions will go to the functional managers. Why are we late? What risks have you got? What actions are you unable to perform? Why are you not able to perform those actions? Okay, so this is an important aspect because the PMO tracks and monitors, the functional manager is accountable, but the organization needs to give me the enablers. Okay, the organization needs to make it happen. So there is an interdependency here across the board, and this is where the complexity that I spoke about at the beginning of this meeting, which means that tools are easy, but the organization is complex. That is where we will fall or we will succeed. We launched, I'll give you an example. We launched a new brand, okay, in Qatar Post. Okay, so you look at it on the internet now, on the website, you've got a new brand, but we launched it in 2017. Now, to make that happen, there is a massive amount of work. And at that time, I was actually personally responsible for that PMO. Bringing back your point, the strategy of launching a new brand is critical, right? Because you're not just launching a new livery, you're not just launching a new color, you're not just launching a new logo, you are launching an identity. A new or refreshed identity, which negates the previous one. We don't want that anymore. We want a new face. It's not a facelift. It is made of changed matters. The lady was talking about change management. New people, new looks and feel, new approach, new customer service, new customer experience. The call center responds in a different way. I mean, it's amazing. It's not just a brand. So now, how did we make it happen? There is no silver bullet. There are mistakes and errors that were coming out of our ears. But we pulled all stoppage and we made it happen on the day where it was meant to happen. I was tracking and I was influencing, but I am not responsible for ensuring that the vehicles are ordered and procured and they arrive in the yard. You with me? The procurement manager or head of procurement is responsible for that. I'm not responsible for hiring people, but the head of recruitment is responsible for hiring people, and the list goes on and on and on. So, but without the monitoring as a bird's eye view of where we're at, then we have confusion. We have that. We also give an alibi to people that they're not being monitored, and therefore, whatever, I'm not doing my bit because I'm not being monitored. But the PMO has a really key responsibility to ensure that things are kept and packaged and orderly, improved and delivered. If they're not, they need to raise the flags in the regular management meetings.
Yeah, perfect. I think you give a perfect explanation of this. One point touched me. So there are so many stakeholders in the organization, whether who are directly involved or indirectly involved, they are affected with this strategy transformations.
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage stakeholder engagement? So from the beginning to the end of any transformation initiatives. So we need to identify the stakeholders. Okay, so we need to find them who is supporting, who is not supporting, who needs information. So it's a very complex process. So it's not only a technical thing, how you do strategic objectives, initiatives, and then you also manage the expectations of the stakeholders. What is your take on this, Alberto? Yeah.
Cool. Look, stakeholder management is absolutely a key, essential skill and capability, and it is an art. It is a social skill. Very little technicality goes into it. And it's a lot about empathy. Okay, so we can do a stakeholder map. This is a guy in favor. This is a this is a promoter. This is a detractor. This is I won't call the names online. This is an idiot, or this is a great supporter, and blah blah blah. Okay, so then what? So what? Then so we've understood the sentiment coming from these people. How do we deal with them? Well, hey, that's an amazing comment, an amazing chapter. So there's a blend of things, Abdul. In my experience, there is maybe the last thing is hierarchy. Okay, there is influencing, there is explanation, communication. There are all those soft skills, engagement, involvement, okay, of stakeholders, understanding why they can't do or they can do something. And the PMO has the finger on the pulse, you see, and they'll be able to understand the stakeholders that are lagging behind. versus the stakeholders that are in green. So who's in the red zone, who's in the green zone, who's in the amber zone. Now, as I said earlier, their responsibility, and it is their accountability, is to flag up, the risks and the issues and so on, and where, who's in the red zone and so on. Not to name them, not to shame them, but more importantly, to understand, the opportunities of why are they so, lagging behind and so on. It may be personality issues. And, you intimated very briefly earlier, there are ways to deal with those situations. But there may be some very serious reasons or lack of enablers why they've not been able to progress. And they're not their responsibility to do so. So there is an art about this. And to be honest with you, it's not about just the strategy. It's about, when I was launching an operational excellence program in a business, in a cultural change requirement, where do you start? You know what I mean? Where do you go? How do you do that? I mean, who's in favor, who's against? So it's not just about strategy. It's about change management. It's about introducing new ways of working. And anything that is different from the status quo will unsettle the community. And you will have, I repeat, you will have people that believe in it. You need to use them. This is quite important to me, or at least it's worked for me. You need to use them to be your advocate. You need to use those promoters to support the early adoption, so that you start developing a window that can show the rest of the community that this particular program is fun, it delivers the results, and most importantly, the people within it find what's in it for me. I repeat,
Yes.
What's in it for me? So that they can get more training, they can receive more potentially faster promotions, they can gain out of it. They can just feel more proud about their workspace. Okay. So these are what's in it for me. And good news propagates. And there people talk. And if you gain the confidence of a few, you're much more able to demonstrate to the masses. Look at that department. Look at that operational section. Look where they've gone from where they were 3 months ago to where they are now. Wouldn't you want to have some of that? So we work on the concept called pull rather than push, right? Of course, the push is you shall do this way or my way, or this way or the highway. The pull is about creating an appetite. Do you see what I mean? An appetite to desire, to want what others are having internally. Now, I have diverted a bit from strategy to a change or an innovation within the business, and why would employees want to go for it, and how would you manage the stakeholder community internally? Okay, there is a whole new discipline when you start talking about launching a product and capturing the customers, early adopters. Now, think about Tesla, for example, right? They launched the first few EVs, and they latched on to some early adopters, to the environmentalists, the people that had the money. By the way, they were quite expensive, right? 5 years plus ago. And through that sort of
The momentum.
slowly catch the monkey, as the goes go. So you eventually get to scale up your business, to introduce new vehicles with the money that you're making, and it becomes a cycle of ascent, where you live off and you eat off your successes. So early adopters within the business and early adopters as consumers.
Customer.
They're all stakeholders.
Perfect. Yeah. So I think we have done the part. We run out of time now. There is a lot of things, so much to discuss. So thank you, Alberto, for excellent insights. I think we need more of such very detailed. Maybe we need to have a very specific programs where you talk about PMO, the culture, the change, maybe separately. Yeah, we will think about doing more such discussions. Okay, so thank you, participants, for the questions. Any questions who are missing or not unable to post it, so please post it. We will see it. Okay, so I will try to get answer from Alberto or myself. Reach you. You can always reach us. So thank you, Alberto. So I would like to thank the organizers, Fruit Strategy, the Kuldeep Fruit Strategy team. So I'll just say as a sponsor. So Fruit Strategy is a comprehensive strategy management solution. If anybody would like to try it, so please let us know. We will be happy to associate. And it's the solution is built on purely experience, how it works in real time to execute your strategies. Not like a fancy thing. It's a real strategy execution solution. We'll be happy to. And our effort to connect experts to the organizations will carry on. Alberto has delivered very nice insights. In fact, I learned a lot. Very few, a couple of very nice points you said, Alberto. So I really very interesting to learn from you. So thank you once again. Thank you everybody. Thank you organizers, participants. Have a great time, great evening in India, maybe a great afternoon in Qatar. So wherever you are, so happy, have a great weekend. Okay, and then enjoy the weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abdul. Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you being here.